Boo. Okay, we're gonna go down and look at where I've been planting some beans. A lot of people probably have no idea what I'm doing here. I am probably the only person planting soybeans to actually harvest them in this entire county. So you can see the farm here sits on some good bottom ground along Frederick Creek, and everybody around here that does anything agricultural wise raises cattle. If we were to go back 100 years from now, it'd be a completely different story. You would have people raising hogs for their own personal use, you know, not to mention big gardens for all their normal eating. And if they raised some cattle, it would probably be just a few head in order to trade or sell in town, you know, to actually get spending money. Like that, the cows would have been their cash crop to, you know, pay their taxes or buy some flour, stuff like that. I'd heard my great-grandpa always liked to plant a few acres of peanuts. Anyway, a lot of diverse agriculture was going on 100 years ago. Now, it's pretty much all cattle, pasture, and that sort of thing. Which is fine. It's profitable if you live here, and I don't. This farm was basically inherited by my mom, and then was farmed by my mom and my dad. And anyway, a couple years ago, Mom decided she didn't want to raise cows anymore, and I don't blame her. They can get you hurt, especially when you're older. And we have pretty gentle cattle, but you still got to get them up and work them and move them around. And at the same time, you still got to take care of your place and fool the cows at the same time. Well, I don't have time to check on cows every day or even every other day. I only have time to maybe come down on a weekend, hopefully not every weekend. And so that's one problem on why I can't raise cows down here. The other problem, if you look out in this field, you can see there's patches here that are dead, and that's because we sprayed it. And then you can actually see other patches that still have some green growth. Now some of that is where we missed with the sprayer. But if you look right here, this patch of green stuff here is Johnson grass. And right in front of the truck here is another patch of Johnson grass. Anyway, there's Johnson grass growing all throughout this field. And Johnson grass is pretty common in isolated spots in pretty much any pasture, but this field here was pretty much just about getting taken over by it. Part of it's because this is a good productive field, and Johnson grass is it's a tall grass and warmer season. In fact, it was imported to this part of the country to be used as a forage. The downside on all that is it's invasive, for one thing. It has a rhizome and extensive root system. The second is there's two conditions when Johnson grass dies. If it dies due to like drought stress or from like a killing frost at the right time of year, it will actually produce, bump there. The Johnson grass will actually produce cyanide inside the grass. And if cows or anything else eats it, that cyanide will kill them dead in low dosage. If you ever remember watching James Bond movies, when he'd catch a bad guy and the guy would bite a pill and commit suicide right in front of him instead of talking, well, that's a cyanide capsule. And this stuff here, when it dies, can actually produce cyanide. Not always, but sometimes it can. So no one likes having Johnson grass, and when they imported it, they didn't know that. So I've got to get this Johnson grass killed out. The other problem with Johnson grass is it has a really thick rhizome root network. So while this has been sprayed with Roundup before, which pretty much kills almost anything, it's still coming up. So it means it'll have to be sprayed again, and again, and again, and again, and again, in order to kill it. So that means if I'm going to get Johnson grass out of this field, I'm going to have to do this to it for a whole summer. And that's not good for soil health. We have pretty good soils here, you know. I mean, that's fairly dark soil. It's got some organic matter in it. It's had cows and pasture on it. This field probably hasn't been tilled. Shoot, I don't even know the last time it was tilled. 1950s, maybe. So, you know, we're looking at 60, 50 years of this being in pasture, which means that this soil has had a lot of time to develop organic matter, or at least get some back in it. Second problem with this field is right here. And this is a problem that was going on the whole farm. And this is thistle. In particular, that's I always get the bull musk and the Canadian thistle confused, but this is the bad one. This one's really bad. And you can see this has still got quite a bit of green to it, and that was sprayed with Roundup not too long ago. Here's somewhere it actually got killed. But I actually had to come back and spray some of these with 2,4-D, which is another spray that kills it. Now you can pull them by hand, and you can pull them by hand year after year after year. And I've done it before. But I'm feeling too old to do that anymore, and I just don't have the time. So we thought, well, let's try to just spray the whole field, restart, hit the reset button on it. But at the same time, I didn't want it just to be barren. So I've come through here and I've drilled in with a no-till drill on the tractor there. And that's a no-till drill my dad bought from the soil conservation office when they had bought it, and they would loan it out, lease it out, whatever they do. And Dad had used it to put in legumes in a lot of our fields around here over the years. And when it come up for sale, because they were going to buy a new one, he bought it and then, you know, kind of rebuilt the running gear, and that way he could plant legumes or whatever he wanted to plant whenever he wanted to. And it's a good drill, it's a good heavy drill, one where you can actually plant seed through turf, you know. And you don't have to plow, you know. I don't plan on ever plowing any field around here. While it's really good for, you know, killing weeds and stuff like that, it aerates your soil, which is good for soil plants that are growing right then and there, but all your organic matter breaks down. Well, not all of it, I guess, but your organic matter breaks down when you aerate that soil, when you plow it up. And with time, you actually end up with a poor quality soil if you plow it every year, or twice a year, or however often you want to plow it. You're fighting against yourself. Where I'm here trying to leave it at least with some cover, this organic matter here on top, it's going to rot down and it'll go back into the soil. The worms will eat it up and all that kind of stuff. And then when we get done with these beans, I don't know exactly what I'll do. I may do beans again someday. Or more likely, I'll put this back into grass. Not that you can't do row crops down here. Shoot, you could do sorghum. Place where they used to do sorghum. You could do corn. You could do more soybeans. And I can't quite see it from here, but across the creek here, there's a big silo. It's the only silo around. And that's because the old gum farm around here, back in the 60s and 70s, they used to put up corn. So you can row crop in Oregon County, it's just nobody does it. And nobody knows how to do it anymore. Nobody has the equipment. It's, you know, there's not good internet service down here. And Soil District or Soil Office did a good job of convincing people they need to keep everything in grass, keep their soil from eroding away, which is good. But that pushed everybody into one type of farming, which is basically cattle farming. And now they're no longer diversified. Everybody here does the same thing, which means when the market's good, everybody here makes money, but when the market's bad, the entire economy here suffers. You know, I mean, you got some people cutting logs, but I mean, what are they getting? 30 bucks for a tree? I mean, it's not that profitable, at least for the people that own the land. Sawmills make out like a bandit because they take half the money. People like to do things on halves down here. They don't run their economics, don't do their paperwork. Figure out what they actually need for, you know, what they're selling. But anyway, that's what's going on with this field, is trying to get those thistles killed out. And I didn't even show you the bad spots on the thistles. I mean, the whole farm's had them, and I've got them pretty much killed out on the rest of the place. But this was just one more field I'd had to do, and I knew I had the Johnson grass problem. So, went ahead and took it out. I'm planting, well, I was planning on planting 2 different varieties here. Ended up planting the third, just because of some timing on when beans got delivered, my seed. But I'm planting 3 different varieties here, and I've got 3 different soil types. If you notice, there's sort of 3 levels to this field, or basically you've got 2 different terraces, which is kind of neat. That's probably related to this valley off to the right is actually an abandoned valley, like an oxbow. There's a valley here to the left, that's the current channel for Frederick Creek, and there's a hill in the middle. It's kind of like an island surrounded by the valleys. So basically there's a stream piracy that took place here, and it left a big abandoned valley off to my right, which has some really good productive soil, but folks don't take care of it, and it looks like the Serengeti. That's what I call it. And then when that stream piracy happened, this creek here incised. It probably did it in a couple stages, and so it's down cutting and actually getting down to where it's pretty much running on bedrock. But as it's down cut like that, it's developed 2 different terraces. So I've got 3 soil types, and I've got 3 varieties, and I don't know what bean's going to do well and what's going to do poor. I hope they all do well, but we've got kind of experiment here. So I've got half the field planted, and I've got the other half to do today. If you see way down in the distance, that's my GPS system down there, which means go pull the stick. I don't have on this this drill the ability to basically scratch the ground and mark where you need to drive to keep your rows straight. I just don't have that ability, and I can't see the rows real well while I'm up in the tractor, you know, those grooves. So what I'm doing is I'm moving a stick to make a target for me to aim towards and drive towards, and that's been working pretty well. I do get a little bit of a gap between my rows, but I'm drilling on 7-inch rows, which is tight, real tight anyway. I mean, some people do soybeans on 30-inch rows if you got the right variety. So I just space it out, and I give myself a little wider row in between, and if I drift up close, that's no big deal. This is going to be a pretty tight planting anyway. So that's what's going on here. I get a lot of looks from people driving by because, like I said, nobody does any row crop around here except for Junior Roberts. Junior Roberts used to, or does every now and then. But his farm where he does all that is way off down at the end of a dead-end road, and nobody sees it. Whereas right down here is a crossroads that's been around for 100+ years, and this gravel road here is kind of a cut through. So during the day, people keep this road pretty hot. So anyway, that's what's going on down here at Job. And then this grass here you're seeing, it's growing good. We're going to cut a lot of it for hay, and then we'll turn the cows in on it, and that's what's going on. All right.